What comes in your mind when you think of utmost level of abusive extraction of work or favor, with the victim being helplessly acquiesced, forced to work through coercion, being owned, dehumanized, and physically constrained? Yeah, it has got to be slavery. And yes, it is. The socially dead identity of a human being with no rights, not even personal. Slavery existed right from a very early age, dating back to 3500 BC in Mesopotamian civilization, or maybe even before that. Enslaving for failure to pay the debt, being sold by parents, relatives, or even spouse at times, kidnapped in slave raiding and piracy expeditions, and the most devastating, being considered a slave for being born to a slave. While going through the history, you may come across a statement like slaves were better off than some poor people. At least they were given food and place to stay. This certainly cannot be denied, but it's not a rule of thumb which could go in favor of slavery. But we're here to speak about slavery in Islam. When Islam came, there were many causes of slavery, such as warfare, debt, kidnapping and raids, and poverty and need. Slavery did not spread in this appalling manner throughout all continents except by means of kidnapping, which was the major raw material source of kidnapping. The text of Islam took a strong stance against this. It says in Hadith al-Qudsi, Allah, may He be exalted, said, "There are three whose opponent I will be on the day of resurrection, and whomever I oppose, I will defeat." One of them was mentioned as a man who sold a free man and consumed his price, narrated by Al-Bukhari. It is worth pointing out that you do not find any text in Quran or Sunnah which enjoins taking others as slaves, whereas there are dozens of texts in Quran and the Hadith of Messenger ﷺ which call for freeing them. There were many sources of enslaving people, whereas the chances of them being freed was almost nil. Islam changed this to the other way round by creating many ways to liberate them and limiting the sources to only enslavement through war. For this obvious reason that if you let go your enemy in a war, then you very well be prepared for another war, because the enemy is still out there. Hence, the common practice was to kill the war captives, or enslave them, or imprison them if it is now. Which option do you think is the most humane of these three? They get to live, eat, drink, and if treated well, they live a life which anyways is a lot better than being killed, and moreover with a chance of being freed, as is encouraged by huge rewards in hereafter in Islam. Going a step ahead, Islam also introduced two more options: unconditional release or ransom. Many were released for ransom and even unconditionally in Battle of Badr, and all were freed unconditionally on the conquest of Makkah. Freedom is a basic right, basic human right, which cannot be taken away from a person except for a reason. Besides, there are some of the principles of dealing with slaves in a just and kind manner according to Islamic teachings, guaranteeing them food and clothing like that of their masters, preserving their dignity, being fair towards slaves and treating them kindly. There is nothing wrong with slaves having precedence over free men in some matters like leading the prayers. A slave may buy himself from his master and be free. The irony is that humanity is still not relieved of slavery. Forced labor, debt bondage, human trafficking, and child slavery, etc. are just the forms of modern slavery.